Welcome to Bleav in Arizona State, episode 41. I'm your host, Bannon, alongside Mr. Evan Reiser. Super excited about what we have upcoming with our guests. We're keeping it packed. Obviously, the offseason is here, but you know what? It's always on season here at Bleav in Arizona State. And speaking of a guy that understands a little bit about on-season and off-season, keeping it 24/7. I mean, we got a powerhouse on the show, Evan. I mean, we're talking probably a game changer, someone that has been developing some of the most physically and mentally tough athletes in the country. Energy and passion is already unmatched, and it's no surprise he was named the Strength and Conditioning Coach of the Year in 2024, a driving force behind the Arizona State Sun Devil football success, head coach of football sports performance at Arizona State, the man, the myth, the legend, Joe Connolly. Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. No, I appreciate you guys having me on, and it's been a long time coming, us getting together, so I'm excited about it.
Yes, obviously appreciate the patience. Obviously, I know that this season was as crazy as can be, but we're going to get right into that. Wanted to start off, obviously, with the Coach of the Year. Congratulations to you once again on that. I wanted to know just kind of a cliche question off of the rip. What does that mean to you? Just kind of obviously that happening. Congratulations once again.
No, that particular award, that particular website's been around for 25 or so years. And, for my entire career, it's been a resource for a lot of information. And you always kind of see people get awards here and there on it. Every year they kind of come out with it. And I had no idea I was even in the running, to be honest. The owner of the website called me, I think Sunday night, and, said that I'd won. And it was great. I don't really do well with attention. I don't really like a lot of attention. I think I'd rather kind of stay in the shadows. So it's been interesting, but certainly good for the program. I think it's a great thing.
Coach, with that and with sports performance, that all starts in the off season, right? You never kind of get a day off, more or less. And so my question to you is, what does your day-to-day look like in the off season? How are you guys getting these ready to come back for another college football playoff run?
Yeah, I mean, it starts early and it ends late. I'll tell you that. Our first group usually starts around 7. I usually train before it, sometime early in the morning. I usually do a variation of or the exact program that some of our vets do. I think it's important to sort of feel it and go through it. I'm still hanging on for dear life at 42 years old, doing the same stuff. But honestly, I think it's a great way to train for longevity as well, as long as you're smart. And then I'll meet with my staff an hour before the first training session. We go over all the details of the training session. Train the first group. It's a 2-hour training session, usually some sort of field work first, athletics, speed, change of direction, injury prevention, plyometrics, conditioning, something along those lines, depending on the day. And then we follow that up with an hour in the weight room. A lot of different variables involved with that. Always some sort of explosive exercise, some sort of strength exercise, depending on the emphasis of the training block, determines a lot of the sets and reps and even exercise selection. And our split is usually 4 days. So the NCAA allows us 8 hours to train them officially. So it's 2 hours a day, 4 days a week. But Wednesday is an extra training day where the guys can come in and get some extra work. And Saturday is also an extra training day. So really a 6-day-a-week job. And it's, we'll have a 7-week training block. Last year, I think we had 11 before spring ball. This year, it's going to be 7 because we played a little later. And then after spring ball, that's really our only extended break throughout the year. You have about 3 weeks off in May when the semester ends after finals before they start their summer sessions. Summer session, we go 5 weeks straight, end of May all the way through June. July 4th week, the vets are off, but the rookies are in. And then when the vets come back, it's 3 weeks. They get a long weekend. Then we're right into camp, and away we go. So it's that's kind of how it works.
And I guess away we go. I wanted to talking about just the growth within training. I think one thing that is very underrated is the technology. behind it. I just wanted to ask, if anything, how has technology played a factor within training and player development for you? And I guess just what does that mean to you? Obviously, just with the power of technology as it is, but just like, how has that really improved the team's, not just training and player development, but just all aspects of these athletes?
Sure. No, it's a great question. And I think it's a question probably everybody's in today's day and age sort of milling over in regards to how technology affects their life. It's no different in training. I tend to be a little bit of a skeptic because there is so many different companies and new flashy things that everybody thinks, are going to make a difference. I am a little bit more old school in my perspective in regards to the work and what it takes, but we do incorporate a ton of technology into our training currently, from strength velocity profiles with a 1080 sprint on guys to determine, what type of runner they are and where they need to improve, which can really drive the individuality of training in regards to field work. We use velocity-based training in the weight room to determine basically if the stimulus we want to create is actually getting created. And then we obviously have force plates, we have NordBoard, we have Strive shorts, which are muscle activation sensors. We have Catapult, so a GPS system that tracks every footstep the athletes take all the way to their max velocity and total yardage and a ton of different metrics in between. So there's a lot of things that drive training. I'm really excited about Coach Dillingham. I have been, obviously, with his sort of philosophy in regards to utilizing data to help drive decisions. It's not the end all be all, but it is another variable to consider when you're making decisions on practice schedule, player loads, the duration of practice, how intense you want it to be, and sort of the peaks and valleys that have to be involved in that. I think he does a great job of really listening and analyzing the data as a group and kind of determining the next steps, and whether it's, a day where you can throw out the data and just work, or it's a day where you say, okay, this is actually something we have to consider when in regards to planning. So, and it will only get more and more. There's things that we want that we don't have, that we need to get, to be perfectly honest. And that's kind of part of a push as always, right? It's the nature of the profession is that when new things come in and they actually fit within your system, and it's something that you think will benefit the athlete, you want to get it. A lot of those things cost an awful lot of money. So we gotta work with that, but we have everything we need now, obviously, to do a lot of different things. And if we don't, we find a way to get it done.
Coach, I know you talked about like different plans for different players. How much personalization is it per player? Is it per group, as in like the quarterbacks and the receivers compared to the offensive linemen getting more specific things? Or does it go really down to the individual player? Is Sam Levitt getting something that's, Jeff Sims isn't getting? Or how personalized is a training day for some of these guys?
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to need, I think, more than anything. And, you said getting and not getting. It's not that they're getting more attention. It's that, somebody may get something. Let's use this as an example, right? Somebody that's been training with us for 4 years, we have a really good idea of what that athlete's makeup is and what they need and the progression they've taken over the course of time. So there's a little bit of nuance to that. I think a lot of our veterans have a little bit more individualization sort of sprinkled in with their programs. You see a lot of trends, though. So not only are we training positions differently on the field and in the weight room, we're also training individuals in the position slightly different as well. So, but that usually doesn't happen till a little bit later in the career. So usually there's a pretty general program and it changes obviously, but a pretty general program for about a year or two, depending on that athlete's progression throughout, because there's certain boxes that need to be checked before, sort of individualizing a program would actually show some benefit, right? You have to have a certain level of strength, a certain level of technical proficiency, a certain level of just training age. And I think that, there's got to be kind of a fine line between the two of those things. And then at that point you can say, okay, based on our force plate data, you're a guy that needs more strength, or you're a guy that needs more power, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to change the exercise selection, but you have to change the way that exercise is completed. And to me, that in the weight room, that's individual, right? That's individualizing a program. So I think that's something that I think we probably do, in my opinion, my humble opinion, a little bit better than a lot of places. It's not a force-fed situation. It's you get what you need, which I think is, a great advantage for us.
We have Joe Connolly here on Bleav in Arizona State. I want to take it to this season. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Peach Bowl, and why I wanted to talk to you about the Peach Bowl as well, because that's the last time that we were able to talk beforehand. But I just wanted to know from a mentally tough side, obviously game going into double overtime, how do you help players, or just, I guess, within the coaching staff, to stay mentally tough, especially in a high pressure situation like that? Talk to me just a little bit about that game and what you were able to do, as well as even the coaching staff. And even with close games like that, how do you evaluate performances within close games, especially one like the Peach Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, I think all that starts in the offseason. I'm probably jaded with that because that's what I do. But I think that, in reality, you're planning for that situation in January, the previous year. And all the little challenges, all the little times where, you basically took an athlete that, inside of himself didn't think that maybe he could accomplish a given task. And then you help him through and he does ultimately accomplish that task. And then you repeat that over and over and over and over and over again over the course of the offseason. I think ultimately what that builds is confidence. And I think that as a sports performance coach, I think that, all the physiological stuff is great, but if somebody doesn't have confidence, then they're useless in this game. So really the single most important thing I can provide and help athletes, understand is what they're actually capable of. And the only way to do that is take them there and take them to the edge and have them look over the edge and just make sure they don't fall off. And then ultimately that edge, the next time they go is further away, and then they got to work some more to get to the edge, and then it gets further away and they got to work some more to get to the edge. That's something that I really believe in, wholeheartedly for anyone, not just our guys. I believe that for anybody, you have to kind of have to flirt with that, that edge as a human being. I think it's something that, I think we're hardwired to do. And I think a lot of people have lost that in today's day and age. It's just the nature of human beings to also try to seek comfort and to seek, warmth and, just a hospitable environment. And ultimately, there's a lot of ways to kind of prepare people for certain situations like that. In regards to that particular game, I don't think that there was a single player on our team that didn't think we were going to win that game. And I really think that's a testament to them and their hard work. And it was like that the whole season long. Once we kind of figured out who we were as a group, we just kept rolling, and our guys believed. They believed to the last cell in their body that they were going to win. And, ultimately at the end of the day, we performed really, really well, but not good enough. And so now we have to go back to the drawing board and get them to believe again with a new crew and a new group. And that's going to be certainly a challenge for us, moving forward. But that was certainly our most difficult game from an analytics perspective. We had, 1,000 player load and some different things that we hadn't hit all year. And, but our guys were prepared for it, and they were ready for it. So
how much of that has to do with kind of program culture in building confidence and keeping to, next goal, and not get comfortable? And then on top of that, how have you seen the culture change? You've been here for multiple coaching staffs. How have you seen the coaching or the culture change under this current coaching staff and Kenny Dillingham?
No, I've seen it change a lot. And I think the biggest thing is, we spend so much time with him in the off season. I always felt like our guys were really, really prepared for what they encountered when the coaches kind of sort of took over. We're always with them, but when there's practice, obviously that's sort of the emphasis, right? That's the goal is to get better at the sport of football. And I think that from an accountability perspective on a 365 calendar year, that's the biggest change is our guys are accountable. They care. Coach Dillingham is constantly educating them, preaching the understanding of the situation. He's truthful. He's honest. And really what that does is create buy-in as a culture from the locker room. And once you have that and you have the confidence, obviously you can see what can be accomplished, even though it didn't end the way we wanted. It's a testament to the growth in just one calendar year of the group.
Well, I wanted to kind of end on this real quick, and this is more of a personal story for you, but obviously, like I said, you've been around so many different coaching staffs and so many athletes and so many players. I wanted to know, is there one rewarding story that you had with the player as far as like just unreal growth from when they were there freshman year or early on, whether a transfer or coming in, to seeing what they're able to do now, whether professionally, whether in life? Is there just one, if you had to pick one, what would that be?
I got a lot. I really do.
Okay.
And I think
like a Mount Rushmore or anything of that, like just something of that nature.
Yeah. No, in today's day and age, I think it's a little different because there aren't a lot of guys that stick around for the 5, 6, 7 years. And one that certainly comes to mind and everybody's probably heard and will understand is Caleb McCullough. He's a guy that, showed up as a not heavily recruited, undersized linebacker. And, he spent 5 years developing as an athlete, and he just slowly, steadily continued to improve each training phase. I mean, there was a point in time, 3-4 years ago where, the staff was going to move on. And that's something that, we talked about. I talk about a lot of that stuff. I try to be as open and transparent with them. And, hey, man, you really got to do this. You really got to do that. You really, you try to set them up for success. And he's a guy that just kept sticking around and getting better and improving and getting his weight up. And, he's training with us for Pro Day right now. And I couldn't be more proud of him. I think he's certainly a success story for us, because if he didn't keep doing what he was doing, he would have never had the success he had. He was very good for us last year, and he was even better for us this year. And that's just Caleb. Every year he keeps showing up and keeps improving. But I got a lot of stories like that. A lot of them happen sort of after the fact, right? So like you train a guy, for a given amount of years, and then, they go on to play in the NFL or whatever. And then, you keep in touch with them via social media or whatever, or what have you. And, they sort of reach out to you and they say, hey man, you remember when you said this? Hey, you were right. Like you were right. And that happens more times than you can think. Because shoot, we've all been 18 to 22, you're stubborn and you don't listen sometimes and you think you know it all. And in reality, you might not. And I got a ton of stories like that. Kyle Scott's another one. He hasn't been here that long, but he's a guy that, we went to bat for. And Coach Saga, he agreed and he had a tremendous season. So he's another guy I'm super proud of that's, sort of relevant in this case, so it's been a long journey, but those moments, they mean a lot.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you coming on once again. Bleav in Arizona State, episode 41. I'm your host, Bannon, alongside Mr. Evan Reiser. We appreciate you coming on, Coach. Congratulations, obviously, on winning the award for Best Conditioning Coach of the Year. Obviously excited to see with Pro Day. Real quickly with Pro Day, how's it looking? Just talk to me just a little bit about what that process, how long is that process supposed to be? And obviously we got a lot of guys within the Arizona State facility that will be declaring for the NFL draft. Just kind of little synopsis real quick as we wrap up here.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. So this year, obviously we're in the Big 12 now. So in years past, Arizona State always has a standalone pro day. Most schools in the country do that. Well, the Big 12 has a all-encompassing 16-team pro day, sort of like the combine. So our guys will actually be traveling to Dallas in March to do a pro day that's very similar in structure to the way the combine is that the Big 12 runs. So it's actually relatively new for me. We have 5 guys staying with us now to train. A couple guys went to other places, which is fine. I sort of help them out in some of the decision making for some of that stuff, and obviously keep tabs with them right along. But our door is always open for those guys, and oftentimes those other places, their training phases are only for a given period of time, and then they have to come back here anyway. So they'll all be through, within the next sort of 2 months, 2.5 months before pro day. And ultimately, hopefully, fingers crossed, a few of those guys will get an invite to the NFL Combine as well.